Welcome back to the podcast, everyone. I'm your host, Emma, and today we are tackling something that every single one of us has experienced. Those moments when you just want the floor to swallow you whole. I'm talking about embarrassing moments. And joining me, as always, is the wonderful Jake.
Thanks, Emma. And I have to say, I thought long and hard about whether I even wanted to do this episode, because once you talk about your embarrassing stories out loud, they live forever on the internet. But here I am, ready to humiliate myself for your entertainment.
And we appreciate that sacrifice, Jake. Honestly, I think embarrassing moments are so universal. Everyone has them, but we rarely talk about them, right? We just replay them in our heads at 3 a.m. when we're trying to sleep.
Oh, the 3 a.m. replay? That is brutal. That's when your brain decides, hey, remember that thing you did 7 years ago? Let's look at it from every angle. Let's zoom in. Let's add slow motion.
Exactly. The brain's greatest hits album. And the worst part is you can't change it. It's already done. So I thought, why not bring it into the light? Talk about it, laugh about it, maybe even learn something from it.
I love that. And for our listeners who are learning English, this is actually a great topic to practice. Talking about embarrassment uses a lot of really useful language. Descriptive words, storytelling tenses, and a ton of phrasal verbs.
That's a great point. We'll sprinkle some of that in as we go, but mostly we're just going to chat and have fun. So, Jake, let me start with you. What's an embarrassing moment that comes to mind first?
Oh, I have so many to choose from. I think the one that still makes me cringe, and I mean literally cringe, happened about 5 years ago. I was at a coffee shop and I saw someone I thought I knew from university. So I walked up, tapped them on the shoulder and said, "Hey, long time no see."
Okay, that sounds normal so far. What happened?
Well, it wasn't them. It was a complete stranger who looked absolutely nothing like my friend. I mean, in my defense, they had a similar haircut from behind. But when they turned around, I just froze. And instead of apologizing and walking away, I just stood there like an idiot.
Oh, no. So what did you say?
I said, "Oh, sorry, I thought you were someone else." And they said, "Clearly." And then I panicked. I said, "Well, you have a very friendly face." And then I walked backward into a table.
You walked backward into a table?
I did. I tried to make a cool exit, and instead I nearly knocked over someone's latte. The person at the table gave me this look. You know the look. The one that says, "I'm not angry, just disappointed."
Oh, that is gold. I love that you tried to compliment them mid-awkwardness. You have a friendly face. That's such a classic panic move.
It is, and it never works. But in the moment, your brain just grabs whatever word is floating around and throws it out there. So, friendly face it was. I still think about it sometimes when I'm in that same coffee shop.
That's the thing about embarrassing moments. Places become haunted. You can't go back to that coffee shop without thinking about it. So tell me, when you tell that story now, does it still feel embarrassing?
Less than it used to. Time helps, and telling the story over and over kind of takes the power out of it. Now it's just a funny thing that happened. But for the first year or so, definitely couldn't tell it without turning red.
Yeah, I think that's true for most of us. The more we share, the less power the memory has. And that's actually one reason I wanted to do this episode. So, okay, I have one. Do you want to hear my most recent embarrassing moment?
Absolutely. Lay it on me.
Okay, so last week I was at the grocery store and I had my earbuds in. I was listening to a podcast, very into it, nodding along, and I thought I was being polite by smiling at people as I walked past them in the aisle.
Okay, that sounds nice. What's embarrassing about that?
Well, I wasn't actually smiling at people. I was reacting to the podcast, but I thought I was making eye contact and being friendly. At one point, I nodded at a man and mouthed the words, "Totally agree," and he looked terrified.
He looked terrified?
Terrified. He sped up his shopping cart like, "Nope, not dealing with that today." And I didn't realize what I'd been doing until I took my earbuds out to pay, and the podcast was still playing super loud. I had been walking around the store half smiling and whispering to myself for 20 minutes.
Oh, Emma, that is incredible. And honestly, so relatable. I feel like half the people in grocery stores these days are having conversations with themselves, and we just assume they're on a call.
Right, that's my excuse too. But no, I was just deeply engaged in a conversation about sustainable farming that no one else could hear. To everyone else, I looked unhinged.
Unhinged is a great word for that. And that's a good vocabulary moment, actually. Unhinged. It means mentally unbalanced. A bit crazy. But we use it playfully. Like, I looked absolutely unhinged in that photo.
Perfect. And you know, that word comes from the idea of a door that's come off its hinges. So if someone is unhinged, they're not quite attached to reality anymore. But yeah, in my case, I was just lost in a podcast.
See, that's what I love about this topic. We get to learn language through real situations. So let's dig into some more. What about you? Do you have a childhood embarrassment that still pops into your head?
Oh, I have so many, but the one that comes to mind, I was about 12 and I had this huge crush on a boy in my class. His name was Daniel. And one day I decided I was going to write him a note.
A love note?
Yes, a very dramatic love note. I spent like an hour on it. I used gel pens, I drew little hearts. It was cringe. Maximum cringe. And I folded it up and I put it in his backpack when he wasn't looking.
Okay, that's brave. So what went wrong?
I put it in the wrong backpack. I put it in the teacher's backpack.
The teacher's?
The teacher's. Mr. Henderson. He found it the next day and read it out loud to the class. He didn't say my name, but everyone knew it was mine because I used my favorite purple gel pen and my handwriting was very distinctive.
Oh, that's devastating, especially at 12. 12 was already such a rough age.
It was brutal. I wanted to disappear. I remember putting my head on my desk and just staying there, pretending I was a turtle. And Daniel didn't even care. He was like, "Oh, that's weird," which somehow made it worse.
Kids can be so brutal without even trying. But you know what? That story is perfect for today because it uses so many useful storytelling techniques. Setting the scene, building tension, and then the payoff. That's a classic narrative arc.
You're right. And for our listeners, notice how I used the past perfect there. I had spent an hour on it. That tells you something happened before another past event. It's a great tense for storytelling. But honestly, I wasn't thinking about grammar when I was hiding inside my turtleneck.
Inside your turtleneck. So, speaking of language, let's talk about one of my favorite idioms, to save face. Have you heard that one, listeners? It means to avoid embarrassment or to maintain your dignity in an awkward situation.
That's a good one. And the opposite would be to lose face. So when Mr. Henderson read my note out loud, I definitely lost face. I tried to save face by pretending I had written it as a joke, but no one bought it.
Classic. And it never works, does it? The "it was a joke" defense. Everyone knows it wasn't a joke.
Never works. But you try it anyway because your brain is desperately looking for an escape route. Okay, let me ask you this, Jake. Do you think men and women handle embarrassment differently?
That's interesting. I think socially, maybe. There's this pressure on men to not care, to just brush it off, like, oh yeah, I fell down the stairs, whatever. But inside, we're dying. We just don't show it the same way.
So you're saying men suppress it and women talk about it?
Sometimes, yeah. Obviously, it's not true for everyone, but I've noticed that my female friends will call each other immediately after an embarrassing moment and dissect every detail. My male friends will just pretend it didn't happen and never mention it again.
That sounds exhausting, honestly. Keeping all that embarrassment bottled up. I think talking about it is healthier. And it makes for better stories. Like, if you hadn't told me the coffee shop story, it would just be this painful memory living in your head rent-free.
Living rent-free. I love that phrase. That's another idiom worth explaining. When something lives rent-free in your head, it means you think about it often, even though you don't want to. And you're right. Embarrassment takes up a lot of mental space if you don't deal with it.
Okay, so we've shared some personal stories, but let's make this interactive. Let's talk about some common embarrassing situations that our listeners might have experienced. Number 1, waving at someone who isn't waving at you.
Oh, the fake wave. Classic. You wave, they don't wave back, and then you have to turn the wave into a very aggressive hair fix or a stretch. I've done that so many times.
The hair fix, yes. You go from waving to suddenly scratching your head like you meant to do that the whole time. But here's the thing. It never looks natural. It looks like you panicked and attacked your own hair.
It does. And then you walk away thinking, did they see me wave? Are they laughing at me? And then you spend the rest of the day avoiding eye contact with everyone just in case.
Exactly. Situation number 2. Tripping in public, especially when there's no visible obstacle, you just fall for no reason, and then you have to act like you meant to do a dance move.
The invisible trip is the worst, because if you trip over a curb or a step, at least there's an explanation. But when you're just walking on flat ground and your foot decides to betray you, that's personal.
It is personal. And the worst part is, when you look around to see if anyone noticed, and someone definitely noticed, and they have that pity face, you know, the one half concerned, half amused.
I know exactly the face. And then you have to decide, do I acknowledge it? Do I laugh? Or do I pretend it didn't happen and walk away with maximum dignity?
What do you usually do?
I laugh. I've learned that if you laugh at yourself, people feel more comfortable. And honestly, it takes the pressure off. If you pretend nothing happened, you look stiff. If you laugh, you look human.
That's good advice. And it ties into something I want to explore. The idea that embarrassment is actually a social emotion. It only exists because we care about how others see us.
That's deep. So, in a way, embarrassment is a sign that you're a functioning member of society. You have awareness, you care about social rules.
Right. And that's why we feel it more around people we want to impress. You probably don't feel embarrassed if you trip in front of your siblings. But in front of a crush or a boss? Devastating.
Absolutely. The stakes matter, and the audience matters. So here's a question for you, Emma. What's the most embarrassing thing that's ever happened to you in a professional setting?
Oh, that's a good one. Okay, so about 3 years ago, I had a big video call with a potential client. Very important. I had my camera off because I was waiting for everyone to join, and I thought I was muted.
I can already tell where this is going.
I was singing. I was making myself a cup of tea and I was singing along to a song playing in my kitchen. Very into it. Full performance. And then my cat jumped onto my desk and knocked my laptop, and the laptop landed on the floor, screen facing up, and I saw myself on the screen, on the call, already connected, camera on, mic on.
No.
Yes. Everyone had been watching me for a full 2 minutes. I made eye contact with my own face on the screen and froze. The client said, and I quote, "You have a lovely voice. Should we start the meeting?"
Oh my God. That is both horrifying and amazing. What did you do?
I said thank you, and then I muted myself and sat in silence for about 30 seconds, just processing what had happened. The meeting went fine, actually, but I never got that song out of my head. Every time I see that client's name in my inbox, I hear the chorus.
That's it. The memory is now permanently linked to that song. That's the curse of embarrassment. It attaches itself to random things, a song, a place, a smell, and then boom, you're back in that moment.
It's true. But you know what? That client ended up working with us. So maybe the singing helped. Maybe it made me more human.
I think it did. And that's a great lesson. Sometimes being a little embarrassed makes people like you more. It shows you're not trying to be perfect. You're relatable.
Perfect is boring, honestly. And that's something I want our listeners to take away. You're gonna make mistakes. You're gonna say the wrong word, wave at the wrong person, trip on flat ground. It happens, and it's okay.
And for English learners specifically, you're going to make language mistakes too. And that's also okay. You might use the wrong preposition. You might pronounce something funny. But those moments are part of the journey.
Exactly. In fact, I'd argue that making mistakes in a new language is even braver. You're putting yourself out there. You're trying. And that's something to be proud of.
So here's a challenge for our listeners. The next time you have an embarrassing moment, try to tell someone about it in English. Use the story. Practice those past tenses. Use some of the idioms we talked about today.
That's a great idea. And if you're shy, start small. Write it down first, then tell a friend, then tell a group. Each time, it gets easier.
Can we do a quick practice? Let's imagine a scenario and tell it together. So picture this. You're in a restaurant. You order food, the waiter brings it, you take a big bite, and it's not what you ordered.
Okay, I love this. So I would start with, last weekend, I went out to eat with a friend. I ordered the pasta, but when the food arrived, I didn't double check. I just took a huge bite.
And it was actually a dish with shellfish, which you're allergic to, so now you're panicking.
Oh, that's worse. Okay, so I took a bite, and immediately I knew something was wrong. My mouth started tingling. I looked down at the plate and realized it was prawns. I'm allergic to prawns. And I just sat there, not knowing what to do.
See how natural that sounds? You set the scene, you describe the problem, you added sensory details, the tingling. That's good storytelling. And for listeners, notice the phrase, I just sat there. That's a really common way to describe freezing in a situation.
And I could have said, I was rooted to the spot. That's another idiom. It means you couldn't move. So in that moment, when I realized I had eaten something I'm allergic to, I was rooted to the spot.
Perfect. That's a great phrase. And then what happens next in our story? Does the waiter come? Does your friend notice?
I think my friend notices because I'm doing the silent panic face, eyes wide, not breathing. And she says, "Are you okay?" And I just whisper, "I think I need to go to the hospital."
And she probably panics too. Now we have a full story with tension, a problem, and a resolution. Okay, so the waiter comes, we explain the situation, and they call an ambulance. Very dramatic ending.
That escalated quickly. But you see the structure. Introduction, setup, conflict, resolution. That's how you tell any story, embarrassing or not.
And that structure works in any language. So let's circle back to some more real stories. I want to share one more, and this one involves a misunderstanding with an idiom.
Oh, I love this. Tell me.
So when I was first learning Spanish, and I'm not fluent, but I try, I was at a dinner party with some friends from Mexico, and someone asked if I wanted more food. I was full, so I wanted to say I'm stuffed. but I didn't know how to say that in Spanish.
Okay, so what did you say?
I said, estoy muy lleno, which technically it means I'm very full, but in some contexts, it can mean something else. My friend burst out laughing and said, "You're not pregnant, you're just full."
Wait, what does it actually mean?
In some Spanish-speaking countries, estar lleno, when referring to a person, can mean pregnant. So I basically told everyone at the table that I was expecting a baby. A very full baby.
Oh no, that's amazing. So you accidentally announced a pregnancy at a dinner party?
Exactly. And I spent the next 5 minutes trying to explain that I meant my stomach was full, not that I was carrying a child. It was a whole thing.
I love that story because it's a perfect example of how idioms don't translate directly. And it's also a reminder that embarrassing moments often make the best memories. That dinner party probably remembers you as the guy who announced his pregnancy.
They do. Every time I see them, someone brings it up. And honestly, I love that. It became my thing. I'm the guy who accidentally announced a pregnancy. It's a badge of honor now.
That's the spirit. Own it. If you can own your embarrassing moments, no one can use them against you. You take the power back.
That's actually a really empowering way to think about it. And I think it applies to language learning too. If you own your mistakes, if you laugh at them instead of hiding, you learn faster. You're less afraid to try.
Yes, fear is the biggest obstacle in language learning. Fear of sounding silly, fear of being wrong. But if you let go of that fear, you open up so much space for growth.
Let's do one more quick practice phrase. Imagine you're telling a story and you want to say that you were extremely embarrassed. Instead of just saying, "I was embarrassed," you could say, "I wanted the ground to swallow me whole."
That's a classic. Or, I wanted to disappear. Or, I was mortified. That's a strong word, mortified. It means extremely embarrassed. It comes from the word mortal, like death. So you're saying, I felt like I was dying of embarrassment.
That's a great one. And a slightly less intense version, I was so embarrassed I could have died. Hyperbole, of course, but it gets the point across.
Hyperbole. That's another good word for our listeners. It means exaggeration. When you say, "I've told you 1,000,000 times," that's hyperbole. You haven't actually said it 1,000,000 times, but it emphasizes your point.
And hyperbole is very common in storytelling, especially embarrassing ones. We exaggerate because it makes the story funnier. Like, I was so embarrassed I wanted to move to another country and change my name.
I have definitely felt that. After the Mr. Henderson incident, I considered changing schools. But then I realized that would require a conversation with my parents about why, so I just stayed and faced the music.
Face the music. Another idiom. That means to accept the consequences of your actions. So you face the music by going back to class the next day.
Exactly. And you know what? A week later, nobody cared. That's the thing about embarrassment. It feels massive in the moment, but everyone else moves on quickly. We're the only ones who replay it.
That's so true. The spotlight effect? It's a psychological term. It means we think people are paying more attention to us than they actually are. In reality, everyone is too busy thinking about their own embarrassing moments to focus on ours.
The spotlight effect. I love that. So if you're an English learner worried about making a mistake in front of others, remember the spotlight effect. People are not watching you as closely as you think. And if they do notice, they probably won't remember it for long.
Unless you sing on a video call. They'll remember that. But in a good way, hopefully.
Hopefully. Okay, I want to wrap up with one more story. This one is from a listener. Well, a friend of a listener. She wrote in and shared this.
Oh, I love listener stories. What happened?
She was at a wedding. She was a bridesmaid, and during the toasts, she stood up to give her speech. She had practiced it 100 times. She knew it by heart. But when she looked out at all those faces, her mind went completely blank.
The dreaded blank. That's terrifying.
She said she just stood there for what felt like an eternity, probably only about 10 seconds. And then, instead of the beautiful speech she had prepared, she said, "I hope you like chicken, because that's what's for dinner."
No, she said that?
She did. She panicked and talked about the menu. The whole room laughed. And then she remembered her speech and delivered it. But now, that's what everyone remembers. The chicken comment.
And is she okay with it now?
She said it took her about 2 years to find it funny. But now she tells it at parties. It's become her signature story. She even introduced herself as the chicken speech girl at a work event once.
That's amazing. That's the full journey, from mortification to ownership. And that's what we're talking about today. Embarrassment doesn't have to define you. You can redefine it. You can turn it into a story you're proud to tell.
Beautifully said. And that's the note I want to end on. Before we go, let's do a quick recap of some of the language we picked up today.
Great idea. So we had unhinged, which means a bit crazy, to save face and lose face, to maintain or lose dignity, living rent-free in your head, thinking about something too much, rooted to the spot, unable to move, mortified, extremely embarrassed, and the spotlight effect, the feeling that everyone is watching you.
And face the music, to accept consequences. And hyperbole, exaggeration for effect. That's a solid list. Write these down, listeners. Use them in your next conversation.
And remember, the next time you trip in public or wave at the wrong person or say something awkward in English, just laugh. It's a story waiting to be told.
Exactly. Thanks for hanging out with us today. If you have an embarrassing story you'd like to share, send it to us. We might read it on a future episode. And until next time, keep talking, keep making mistakes, and keep learning.
Take care, everyone. And remember, if you ever walk backward into a table, just own it.
Good advice. See you next time.
Bye, everyone.